I took a month-long gig overseeing a family cabin in the Rockies just a week ago. I was 34 and thought the piece would help my creativity. The cabin was rustic, surrounded by tall pines. The first night felt like a dream, distant from city chaos. I really thought I could relax and spark some new ideas on my second night. I heard soft knocks on the door. I jumped out of bed. I opened it slowly, but no one was there. I laughed it off. Maybe it was just the wind. It seemed like a normal night in the mountains. As days passed, strange things happened. The lights flickered from time to time, but I shrugged it off. Just a power issue, right? Each night, I checked my phone, hoping for a message. Instead, I found strange messages from unknown numbers. Footsteps on the porch began to disturb my peace. I had no idea who, if anyone, was out there. Was someone watching me? I tried to stay calm. I told myself it was my imagination. But unease crept in, and the mountains felt like they were closing in on me. I spent days cleaning and walking around, trying to shake off whatever was bothering me. Sometimes on the way back to the cabin, my heart raced, echoing in the silence around me. It felt unsettling. That night, the knocks returned. They were louder this time. My heart was racing. I stood still, unsure whether to call out or open the door. Part of me screamed not to answer. But I was curious too, maybe a little reckless. I crept toward the door again. I cracked it open. Nothing. I felt a chill rush over me. Walking back inside, I noticed the porch light flickering. It was different this time, like someone kept tapping it. I shut the door tight and wiped sweat from my brow. I wanted to sleep, but my mind wouldn't quiet down. I couldn't shake the feeling. Who was out there? What did it want? Each creak of the cabin added to my worry. I heard whispers in the wind, but I told myself it was just that wind. I stood at the window, peering into the dark. When I saw it, a shadow lurking on the edge of the trees. It felt wrong, like something was watching me. My heart pounded harder. I felt frozen, terrified. I didn't want to look away, but my instincts screamed to run. Then it vanished. I turned to grab my phone, but it buzzed in my hand. An unknown number flashed. Fear gripped me. I backed away from the window. Then the knocks banged again. They were louder and more urgent. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I felt trapped, too scared to breathe or turn around. When I knew something was out there. It was waiting. I didn't know what it wanted, but I should have paid attention to the rules. I felt so alone. The cabin was holding secrets I didn't want to uncover. It felt like I wasn't alone anymore in the mountains after all. The next morning, I woke up groggy and unsettled. The sun was bright, but it felt like a false dawn. I thought maybe sunlight would chase away the shadows from my mind, but that hope faded quickly. I glanced around the cabin, half expecting something to jump out at me. I shook my head, trying to dispel the anxiety that clung to me like a damp blanket. I decided to distract myself by exploring the cabin grounds. I opened the door and stepped outside, letting the fresh mountain air fill my lungs. As I walked, I kept glancing over my shoulder. The trees stood tall and quiet, but the stillness was almost eerie. I spotted the old shed behind the cabin, its door ajar like it was inviting me in. I had never ventured there before. Taking a cautious step closer, I felt a strange compulsion to explore. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Creaked loudly, echoing in the silence. Inside, it was dark and musty. I scanned the interior with squinting eyes but saw nothing of interest, just old tools covered in cobwebs and boxes lined against the walls. When I noticed a piece of paper sticking out from under a rusty old shovel. I knelt down and pulled it out, my hands shaking slightly. The paper felt brittle, and my heart raced as I unfolded it. It was a list of rules. Rules for anyone staying in the cabin. They were handwritten and mostly faded, but one line stood out clearly: do not invite or entertain visitors after dark. I felt my stomach drop. Had I already broken that rule? Just then, the door to the shed slammed shut behind me, making me jump. I whipped around, a rush of panic flooding my system. I grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I shook it hard, fear clawing at my throat. Let me out, I shouted, my voice echoing against the wooden walls. No answer came. I was trapped, and the silence felt deafening. Panic bubbled inside me as I pounded on the door. "Help! Someone!" I yelled, but all I heard in response was the creaking of the wood settling. After what felt like an eternity, the door finally loosened and swung open. I stumbled out, almost tripping over my own feet. The air outside felt fresh compared to the stifling heat of the shed, but I still felt a shiver run down my spine. I quickly turned back to the cabin, but then froze to the edge of the trees. I saw the same shadow from last night, just standing there, watching. My heart raced again, and instinct told me to run. But I couldn't move. I stood paralyzed, locked in disbelief. Then I noticed something strange. In its hand, the figure held what looked like my phone. A wave of dread washed over me. How had it gotten that? What did it want? Before I could process it, the shadow turned and vanished into the thick woods. I felt my legs finally move, and I sprinted back to the cabin. I slammed the door shut, locked it tight, and leaned against it, breathing heavily. I was alone, but I didn't feel safe. The mountains felt more suffocating than ever. I clutched my phone, realizing I had to find a way to escape this nightmare. But how? And why was someone or something watching me? I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I sat on the floor, back against the cold cabin door, my heart still pounding from the encounter. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I fished it out anxiously. Felt like a lifeline, but there was no signal. I was completely cut off. Pacing the small space, I tried to think rationally. What did that shadow want with my phone? Did it know me? The thought made my skin crawl. I needed to get a grip or I would lose myself in paranoia. I examined the list of rules again, my mind racing. Another line caught my eye. "Do not explore the woods alone." I felt a knot in my stomach. I remembered what I saw earlier, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadow was warning me. It was both a thrill and a terror that drove me. Maybe the forest held answers, something to explain this bizarre situation. But a voice whispered in my head, a voice urging me to stay put and wait for help. Was there even anyone out there? My eyes darted to the window. The forest loomed dark and thick, branches swaying like fingers beckoning me. Deciding enough was enough, I grabbed my keychain flashlight and opened the back door slowly, my resolve hardening. I stepped outside, the crisp air biting against my skin. If there were answers out there, I was going to find them, even if it meant facing that shadow again. Walking toward the tree line, I felt the ground shift beneath me, small stones crunching with each cautious step. I swallowed hard, my flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. The woods stirred with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant twigs snapping. But still, I pressed forward. Then I heard something, a low thrum, like a distant voice echoing through the trees. It was faint, but it sent a chill coursing through me. I aimed the flashlight toward the sound, pushing deeper into the woods. As I moved closer, the thrum grew louder, and I could make out a distinct pattern like someone whispering. I hesitated, battling with my instincts. Should I turn back? Or was this a sign I was meant to follow? I took a deep breath and pushed on, curiosity laced with fear. Then everything changed. The thumping stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. Suddenly, my flashlight flickered and died. Panic surged through me as I clicked it again and again, but the beam remained dark. I felt vulnerable, lost. Then there it was again, a shadow darting between the trees, moving too quickly for me to see. "Hello!" I called out, my voice wavering. No response. I wanted to turn back, but I was too far in. And then I remembered the figure had my phone. Without it, I was cut off from the world, and I had no way of knowing what was really lurking in the dark. Just as I turned to retrace my steps, I caught movement from the corner of my eye. My breath hitched as I focused on the new shadow. This one appeared to be closer than before. I steadied myself. When I saw it, my phone, lying on the ground, illuminated by a sliver of moonlight. I rushed to grab it, but as I picked it up, I was not alone anymore. There, standing behind me, was the figure, waiting. All rational thought fled as I felt cold dread settle over me. "Who are you?" My voice was barely above a whisper, and I didn't recognize it as my own. No answer came, just the sound of my heartbeat echoing in the stillness of the forest. The figure shifted slightly, barely visible in the dim light, but I could feel its presence pressing against me like an unbearable weight. It was tall and cloaked in shadows, the features hidden beneath the dark fabric. Panic gripped my throat, and I fought the urge to scream. "Please," I managed to say, "I just want to go home." It was a weak plea, but I couldn't think of anything else. The silence stretched between us, thick and unnerving. I needed answers, but I didn't know if I was ready for them. Then, the figure took a step forward, and I felt an electric jolt shoot through the air. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if everything was waiting for this moment. And suddenly, I realized it wasn't the shadow that I was afraid of. It was my own fear, looming larger than any monster. I took a step back, the phone still clutched tightly in my hand. The glimmer of the screen reflected off my trembling fingers. Desperation filled me, and I rallied my courage. "What do you want with me?" I demanded, firmer this time. Seconds passed. Then, just when I thought I might crumble, the figure spoke. Its voice was low and gravelly, echoing in the stillness. "Not all who wander are lost, but you are close." Confusion swirled in my mind. What did that even mean? I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, I felt compelled to find out what it knew. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. "You hold the answers," it said, gesturing toward the forest beyond us. "But you cannot see them alone." I blinked, grappling with the implication. The forest was a labyrinth, and I was just a speck lost within it. What did I hold that could shed light on this darkness? Just the thought made my stomach turn. Before I could process the figure's words, it took another step toward me, and I instinctively turned to flee. The branches clawed at me as I dashed back into the woods, panic setting in. The figure was right behind me, stalking through the shadows like a predator. I stumbled over roots and rocks, breathless and desperate for the cabin's refuge. Finally, I broke through the trees, gasping as I reached the clearing where my cabin stood. I felt a surge of relief, but it was short-lived. As I turned to slam the back door shut, I hesitated. Something deep inside warned me if I closed myself off now, I might never find out what the figure meant. I glanced back into the darkness, fully aware that the shadow was there, watching. "Wait," I shouted, my voice echoing against the forest. "Come back. I need to understand." But the only answer was silence, and the oppressive weight of the darkness returned. I was left standing there, heart racing, unsure of what to do next. I had set out to uncover the truth, but now I faced something more unsettling than fear itself. The knowledge that the answers I sought might lead me to places I wasn't ready to face. With my phone lighting the path, I took a deep breath. I had to find that figure again. I had to understand what it meant by holding the answers. As I stepped back into the shadows of the woods, the uncertainty loomed over me like a storm gathering strength. What else awaited me in the dark? The forest closed in around me as I ventured deeper, the light from my phone casting unsettling shadows on the gnarled tree trunks. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground itself was trying to anchor me in place, holding me back from the answers I desperately sought. As I walked, I replayed the figurous words in my mind. "You hold the answers, but you cannot see them alone." What did that even mean? I squinted into the dense darkness. Was there something I was missing? Perhaps a detail I hadn't noticed before? I paused, listening to the silence. The damp earth beneath my shoes felt alive, a heartbeat pulsing beneath the surface. Suddenly, a flash of light flickered in the distance, an orange glow peeking between the trees. Something within me forced me to move toward it. Despite the instinct to turn and run the other way, did I quicken my pace, branches snapping underfoot. The glow shifted and flickered like a flame dancing in the wind. I pushed through the underbrush, and as I emerged into a small clearing, the source of the light became clear. A fire pit sat in the center, surrounded by rugged stones. The flames licked up into the night, illuminating forms and objects scattered around it. My heart pounded, Not from fear this time, but from curiosity. Old pieces of wood leaned unsteadily against the stones. Odd symbols were etched onto their surfaces, marks I hadn't seen anywhere else in the woods. What had created these symbols? I knelt down to get a closer look. As I traced one with my finger, the ground began to tremble softly beneath me. A low hum resonated from the fire pit, sending shivers up my spine. The warmth from the flames wrapped around me, offering a momentary reprieve. Suddenly, a chilling blast of wind rushed through the clearing, and I instinctively turned to the dark trees surrounding me. The comfort of the fire was momentary. I felt those shadowy eyes watch me again, now more alert. I took a step back, adrenaline spiking. Then I heard the faint sound of whispering. It was soft at first, barely distinguishable from the rustle of leaves. But it grew louder, wrapping around me like an echo. Follow, follow, the voices seemed to beckon. I looked back to the fire, then to the woods again. Against my better judgment, I moved closer to the flames, feeling drawn to whatever energy resonated there. My phone's light flickered, and insecurity surged. Perhaps the answers I was looking for were not in the figure itself, but in uncovering this strange gathering. But before I could delve deeper, a figure stepped out from behind a tree. My breath caught in my throat. It was the shadow from before, back again. The fear returned, but this time there was something else, a flicker of recognition. Do not stray from the path, it warned, voice deep and commanding. The fire knows the truth, but it also reveals the unprepared. A wave of dread surged through me. I felt trapped between the burning glow and the cold embrace of the shadows. Could I truly handle what was coming? Wait, I shouted, but the figure just shook its head before retreating into the dark. The whispering intensified, surrounding me. I was torn, caught in the moment between trusting the fire's allure and the figure's foreboding words. When I saw it, a flash of light reflecting off something metallic half buried in the dirt near the fire pit. I crouched down, heart racing, desperate to uncover whatever secret lay beneath. What I found would change everything. I brushed away the dirt, revealing a small, ornate box. Its metal surface gleamed under the flickering flames, covered in intricate designs that matched the symbols around the fire pit. I hesitated, the weight of my earlier encounters pressing on me. Was this box the truth the fire had promised? The whispering grew more frantic. Open it, they urged. I glanced around, half expecting the shadow to reappear, but only the fire crackled in response. My heart raced as I lifted the box, feeling its cold edges dig into my palms. I hesitated, breath hitching in my throat. What if the fire revealed nothing, or worse, something I couldn't handle? But a part of me felt tethered to that box, as if it held the answers I needed. I took a deep breath and flipped open the lid. Inside lay an assortment of objects. Brittle parchment, a broken compass, and a small, stained mirror. My fingers trembled as I reached for the parchment first. It was covered in the same symbols I'd seen everywhere. I strained to decipher them, but the language felt foreign, slippery in my mind. As I examined the other items, the temperature around me dropped suddenly. I shivered, glancing back toward the trees. The shadows seemed darker, more defined, as though they were closing in. I felt a rush of panic. What is happening? I whispered to the stillness. The mirror caught my eye again. It was small, with an air of something important about it. I picked it up, feeling a jolt of energy surge through me. The flames flickered wildly, casting bizarre reflections across my face. I brought the mirror closer, squinting into it. The surface rippled, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw the shadowy figure standing behind me. Just out of the corner of my eye, a voice pierced the air. You must see the truth. I spun around, but nothing was there. The fire crackled ominously, as if responding to the fear that coursed through me. Then, I heard the whispering again, this time urgent. The darkness will consume you. Trust the fire. Panic ignited in me, and I forced myself to look back at the mirror. Was it a warning, or something darker still? I felt a presence behind me, sensing movement in the shadows just beyond the firelight. I gripped the box tightly, the weight of the truth bearing down on me. What does this all mean? I called out to the shadows, feeling foolish. But the only reply was the wind howling through the trees, drowning out the whispers. I was alone, or perhaps not. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The glimmering mirror felt heavier in my hand, an anchor pulling me into its depths. Suddenly, everything went still. The fire sputtered, its light dimming. I felt a twist in my gut, a primal instinct to flee taking hold. But before I could make a decision, the shadows surged forward, and a figure broke through the darkness. I froze. It was the figure from before, standing tall and imposing. "You are not prepared. You must leave now." His voice was low but resonated with authority. The fear gripped me tighter, and I glanced back at the box, torn between what I believed I might uncover and the warning in his words. Then, in a burst of clarity, I realized the truth was right in front of me. I couldn't explore this by myself. Whatever lay behind that veil of darkness was far beyond my understanding. And if I continued, I might not return the same. As the figure advanced, my instincts kicked in. I turned and bolted into the forest, the fire's glow fading behind me, heart pounding, knowing I had to find help before it was too late. I stumbled through the underbrush, branches scratching at my arms, as I sprinted away from the fire pit. My breath came in short gasps as the weight of the forest pressed in around me. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere felt better than facing that figure again. The shadows twisted under the moonlight, their shapes mocking me. I could almost hear the whispers again, taunting me to return. "Stop." I shook my head, forcing myself onward. I needed to find help, but who could I trust? I thought about everyone back in town. They had always warned me to stay away from the forest at night, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was waiting for me. As I pushed through the thick brush, something caught my eye. A light flickered between the trees, steady and warm. My heart raced with a mix of hope and fear. Could it be someone who could help me? Or was it another trap? Either way, I had to take the risk. I picked up my pace, moving towards the glow. When I reached the source, I felt a wave of relief. It was a small cabin, its windows glowing with soft light. A plume of smoke spiraled from the chimney, and the familiar smell of firewood brought me a moment's comfort. I raised my hand to knock but hesitated. What if this was another part of the darkness I had encountered? Then, the door creaked open, and a figure stood in the doorway. Took me a moment to recognize him. It was Owen, a local ID met a few weeks back. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said with a wary grin. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "You have to help me," I blurted out, heart pounding. I quickly recounted the events, the box, the whispers, and the figure. Owen listened attentively, brows furrowed, his expression shifting from skepticism to concern. "The fire? The shadows?" he murmured. "I've heard those things before. Old stories from the hikers who've gone missing. Usually, people don't take them seriously." "Yeah, well, I didn't take them seriously either until now," I snapped. "What do I do?" I felt him behind me. "Owen, I think he's still out there." Before he could respond, the lights flickered and went out. A chill crept into the room, wrapping around us like a shroud. Owen reached for a lantern, his hands shaking slightly. "It's just a power outage," he said. But I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Something isn't right?" I insisted, feeling panic rise again. I could sense a presence outside, a cold pressure building. I rushed to the window, glancing out into the darkness. And when I saw it, a silhouette standing at the edge of the woods. The unmistakable outline of a tall figure. My heart dropped. "Owen, we need to lock the door," I whispered urgently. But as he turned to secure the door, the figure moved swiftly, silently toward the cabin. The air thickened with dread, and I could feel the walls closing in on me. I backed away, heart racing again, knowing that whatever was outside wouldn't stop until it had what it came for. "Stay close," Owen said, his voice low as he moved to block the door. I could feel it then, the darkness rising, ready to consume. The lantern flickered to life, casting shadows that danced across the walls. Owen's face was a mask of determination, but I could see the worry lurking in his eyes. "We have to figure out what we're up against," he said, gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. I nodded, but my heart raced. "What is that thing?" I forced myself to move away from the window and back toward him, my instincts screaming that we needed a plan. "Do you know anything about it? Please, you have to tell me." Owen took a deep breath, his gaze darting back to the door as if he expected it to burst open at any moment. "There are legends about a spirit that haunts these woods," he whispered. "Some say it's the vengeful ghost of a hiker who got lost. Others believe it's a protector of the forest, punishing those who trespass at night. Whatever it is, it's drawn to fear." A wave of nausea rolled through me. Fear? I glanced back toward the window. What if it can feel our fear? What if it knows I'm terrified? "Then we can't show it," he said sharply. "We have to keep calm, think clearly." But the steady cadence in his voice contradicted the fear that lurked within him. Leaking into the air between us, I was about to respond when a loud thud echoed from outside, rattling the cabin. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to peer out the window again, but a dark mist had begun to swirl around the base of the cabin, blocking my view. Something was out there, and it was getting closer. "What was that?" I asked, urgency tightening my chest. "Stay here," Owen said, moving toward the door. "I'll check it out." "No, you can't go out there alone," I protested, gripping his arm. He hesitated, his brow furrowing. "We need to know what we're dealing with. I can't let it catch us off guard." But I couldn't let him face whatever that was alone. "If you go out there, I'll go with you." I gripped the lantern tighter, my knuckles turning white. Owen opened his mouth to argue but stopped when another thud resounded against the door. This time, the cabin shook. My stomach dropped. "What if it comes in?" I asked, fear spilling out in my voice. "I'll barricade the door," he said hurriedly. He moved to grab a chair and pushed it against the door, wedging it tightly. Meanwhile, the thudding continued, relentless and merciless. We stood together by the door, listening to the growing chaos. The shadows outside seemed to pulse with life, shifting and twisting in unnatural ways. Then, a whisper glided through the crack beneath the door. It was low and raspy, echoing my thoughts. "Let me in." I stepped back, my heart racing. "What does it want?" Before Owen could answer, the cabin trembled again, and something snarled outside. The sound was primal, sending waves of fear rippling through me. "Owen," I gasped. "Stay away from the door," he shouted. "Whatever it is, we need to stay together." In that moment, I realized something. I was not just running from a figure in the woods. I was running from something much darker, something that had been searching for us long before we ever stepped inside the cabin. The whispers grew louder, forming words that twisted my mind. "Help me," they said, "and I'll set you free." And just like that, the door splintered. The door burst open with a loud crash, splintering into pieces. I stumbled back, barely catching myself against the wall. My heart raced as a heavy presence loomed in the doorway, shrouded in darkness. I could barely make out its shape, but the outline was larger than any person I'd ever seen. "Owen!" I shouted, my voice thick with panic. He was by my side instantly, his grip firm on my shoulder. "We need to move." Without waiting for a response, he turned and dashed toward the far side of the cabin. I followed, the lantern swinging wildly in my hand. Behind us, the air crackled with energy, and I could feel it. Whatever had just entered. It thrummed with an unsettling power. A deafening roar erupted from the doorway, shaking the floor beneath us. I glanced back just in time to see a pair of glowing eyes peering through the smoke. It was a haunting sight, like a predator sizing up its prey. A shiver ran down my spine, and I quickened my pace to catch up to Owen. "Where do we go?" I asked, desperate for direction. His eyes flicked to the windows, then back to me. "The attic," he yelled. "It's a small space, maybe it can't follow us up there." I nodded, even as doubt gnawed at me. Would we be safe? I couldn't shake the feeling that it could track us anywhere. Owen rushed ahead, pushing open the trapdoor with urgency. I hesitated, casting another glance toward the door where the eyes glinted with menace. A low growl rumbled from the direction of the entrance. We didn't have time. I climbed the ladder behind him, trying to maintain my grip on the lantern while keeping my other hand braced on the beams. The attic was cramped and barely illuminated, the beams arching overhead like a maze of shadows. I dropped the lantern on a wooden crate, and it steadied itself, sending flickering light across the space. Owen pulled the trapdoor shut. A heavy thud echoed from below, making the entire cabin shudder. The creature was coming in after us, its presence almost palpable, a dark weight pressing against the space around us. "What do we do now?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Owen was scanning the room, his eyes wild. "Look for something we can use to defend ourselves." I nodded, forcing myself to focus. Old boxes littered the space, filled with dust and cobwebs. I rifled through a few, finding mostly forgotten trinkets. I picked up a rusted toolbox, unsure if it would do much good. "Do you think this will help?" Owen frowned, peering over my shoulder. "Maybe," he said. "We just need a distraction so we can suddenly—" A scraping sound clawed its way down the walls. The roof creaked ominously, and the lantern flickered violently in response. I glanced toward the corner where the shadows seemed to deepen, almost alive. "That's not good," I muttered, terror creeping back in. Before I could react, the sound swelled, a guttural beastly growl echoing from below. "We have to move," Owen urged. Just then, I spotted something glinting near the edge of the attic floor, an old hunting rifle. My heart raced. "Owen, look." I pointed, urgency coursing through me. He turned, eyes widening. "Maybe it still works." We both scrambled toward the rifle, adrenaline kicking in. But then, the trapdoor burst open again, splinters flying as the creature stalked into the attic. It towered over us, muscles rippling beneath dark skin like shadows made flesh. In that moment, all my instincts screamed to run. And then it lunged. The air exploded with tension as the creature lunged towards us, filling the small attic space with its terrifying presence. Everything moved in slow motion. I dropped the toolbox, grabbing the rifle instead, my fingers trembling as I struggled to manage the weight of this ancient weapon. Owen's eyes widened in disbelief. There was no room for hesitation, no time for second-guessing. "Get ready," I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. But just as the beast's shadow loomed closer, something remarkable happened. The lantern flickered brightly, casting light into the deepest corners of the attic, illuminating the tangled shadows. The creature halted, hesitating as the glow enveloped it, and for a flickering moment, I caught a glimpse of something else. Fear nestled behind its eyes. "Now!" Owen shouted, and time snapped back to reality. In one swift motion, I raised the rifle and aimed carefully. My heart pounded as I squeezed the trigger. A deafening bang erupted, reverberating through the attic's wooden beams. The bullet struck true, and the creature roared, a sound that pierced through the night, echoing far into the forest. It staggered back, silhouetted against the lantern's light. For a fleeting moment, I thought we had one. But it wasn't enough. The creature howled in rage and pain, lunging again, more furious this time. I barely had the time to lift the rifle once more when Owen grabbed my arm and yanked me toward the trapdoor. "We need to get out now." We rushed down the ladder, handmade whispers swirling in the air around us, echoes of fear and shadows, memories buried deep within the forest. We landed on the cabin floor, adrenaline spiking. As we sprinted toward the door, the sound of splintering would followed closely behind. I sprinted outside, the chill of the night air rushing over me. "Where do we go?" I gasped, scanning the darkness, feeling the panic rising in my throat. The shadows were thick and ominous, but I couldn't shake the thought that whatever was out there felt incredibly close. "The shed!" Owen yelled, motioning toward the far side of the cabin. Like a wild animal, I followed him, the weight of the darkness pressing in on us. We shoved open the shed door, a stale wave of air enveloping us as we stepped inside. Owen grabbed the old tools, then instinctively froze as he peered into the darkness beyond the figure blocking our escape. "Stay behind me," Owen said, but barely had the chance to finish before the shadow surged forward, darting into the light. It was there, looming large, its features still hidden, but we could feel its malevolence creeping closer. And then, unexpectedly, it stopped. It simply stood, watching us, its presence trembling beneath its own shifting shadows. The flickering light from our lantern cast wavering patterns on the walls, bending and twisting enigma-like. "Why are you doing this?" I shrieked, my hands holding tightly to Owen's shoulder. "Why won't you just leave us alone? Not all who wander are lost." It spoke, its voice layered with unease. Owen and I exchanged horrified glances, both wondering if every story about the forest was true. Perhaps this wasn't just a spirit. Perhaps it was the forest itself, its memories entwined with the echoes of those who had lost their way. In a moment of bravery I didn't know I possessed, I stepped forward, shaking but resolute. "If you want someone, take me," I urged. "Let him go." I felt fear spilling from my lips but knew my choice was the only chance. The figure froze, its shadowy outline flickering like the flames of a dying fire. "Do you seek your truth?" it asked, its voice somehow softer, almost human. I felt a pang of regret rising in my chest, the yearning to return to normalcy. "No, please, let us leave," I begged, tears starting to form in my eyes. With a sudden flicker, the shadows enveloped the figure between us, swirling and expanding like an unsolved puzzle. It hungered for more, and before I could comprehend, the air shifted sharply. The light of the lantern flickered violently before everything went dark. The shadows swallowed us whole. I gasped, the world tilting out from beneath me. A moment later, I was sprawled on the cold wooden floor of the shed, heart pounding, but the shadows had receded. I looked around in shock. The figure had vanished, and I felt an unsettling silence replace the chaos. Owen lay beside me, his eyes wide with disbelief. Did we escape? I couldn't answer. My mind was still spinning. The oppressive weight of the forest and the chaos of fear loomed around me. But as the silence settled, I couldn't shake the sensation that even here, in the safety of our refuge, something was still lurking beyond the trees. What had truly happened in those woods? Why hadn't the figure taken me? We stumbled out of the shed, dawn breaking behind us, golden rays casting light through the trees, illuminating the shadows left behind. I turned back once more, glancing through the thick brush. "Do you think it's over?" Owen asked, and I could hear the underlying dread in his voice. "I don't know," I confessed, breathless. "But I can't stay here, not anymore." So we left. I moved to a different town, away from those woods that held too many secrets, but I still think about that night sometimes. I wonder if I ever really faced whatever it was out there. Did we escape to safety? Or was this merely the calm before the storm? Each night as I lay in bed, the whispers of the forest linger in my mind, whispering to me, reminding me that somewhere, perhaps in a distant corner of my memory, the shadows still lurked, waiting. But I guess I'll never truly know.